I was 9 months pregnant when my husband pushed divorce documents across a courtroom table and asked me to put my signature on them before our child had even taken her first breath. My hands trembled. The judge sat waiting. Attorneys on both sides watched closely, and the man I had shared my life with for 7 years refused to lift his eyes to meet mine. I believe that moment was the lowest point I would ever face. I was mistaken because, instants before the pen touched the paper, my husband's father rose from his seat, crossed the courtroom floor, and struck his own son across the face with enough force to silence the entire room. Then he turned, pointed toward the witness area, and announced, "My son carries guilt, but he isn't the one concealing the real truth here." My name is Hannah Reeves. I am 32 years old, and on the day all of this unfolded, I sat in a packed courtroom, 9 months along, with divorce paperwork laid out in front of me. I should have been getting ready to welcome my daughter into the world. Instead, I was getting ready to watch my marriage end. The room felt unnaturally cold, though I couldn't tell if that came from the air conditioning or from the way my husband, Marcus Reeves, looked at me like someone I had never met. Marcus and I had spent 7 years together as husband and wife. For the majority of that time, I assumed we were content. We weren't flawless, no couple is. We bickered over finances now and then, disagreed on small matters, but ending up in a courtroom weeks before our first baby arrived was never something I could have pictured. Roughly 3 months before that day, something shifted in Marcus. He grew quiet and removed. The man who once sent me messages all day long could barely manage a short reply. The husband who used to spend hours debating names for our baby stopped bringing up our future altogether. I told myself it was pressure from his job. Later, I wondered if I was simply too emotional from the pregnancy, too quick to read into things, but somewhere underneath it all, I sensed that something had gone badly wrong. Whenever I asked him directly what was troubling him, his response never changed. Nothing. That single word built a barrier between us that grew taller every day. Then one night, with no warning at all, he walked through the door holding divorce papers. I can still picture myself frozen, staring at them. "What is this?" I asked. He couldn't bring himself to look at me. "It's finished, Hannah." No explanation followed. No genuine reason was given, only flat, distant words. I pleaded with him to explain what had happened. I asked outright if he was involved with someone else. He said no right away, but something about how quickly and smoothly he answered made it feel rehearsed. In the weeks that followed, I searched everywhere for an answer. I examined every angle, hunted for proof, and found absolutely nothing. No affair, no hidden relationship, no secret debts from gambling, nothing that explained why he would walk away from our family. Still, he kept pushing the divorce forward, and that brought us to the final hearing. The judge sat reviewing paperwork in silence. The attorneys arranged their files. Voices murmured throughout the gallery, while my entire world felt like it was crumbling beneath me. Marcus's lawyer pushed the documents toward my side of the table. "Mrs. Reeves, your signature is all that's needed to close this out today." My throat closed up. I looked down at the blank line waiting for my name. One signature, one single moment. 7 years of marriage reduced to a stack of papers. Across from me, Marcus finally broke his silence, his tone unsettlingly composed. "Hannah, there's no need to drag this out longer than necessary." Those words struck me harder than anything else that day. Drag it out? I was carrying his child, days away from delivering her, and all he could think about was convenience. I felt tears building, but I refused to let them fall in front of strangers. The judge glanced over his glasses. "Mrs. Reeves, are you ready to proceed with your signature?" The walls of the courtroom seemed to close in around me. My fingers reached toward the pen. I told myself this was simply how it had to end. Maybe some marriages just couldn't be saved. Maybe this had become my new reality. My hand closed around the pen. Silence filled the room. Then the double doors burst open without warning. Every head turned. An older man hurried inside, his face flushed with fury, his breathing ragged. I knew him instantly. Walter Reeves, Marcus's father. The whole courtroom watched as he stormed down the center aisle, and the rage in his eyes was unlike anything I had ever witnessed. Marcus shot to his feet. "Dad, what are you doing here?" Walter paid him no attention. The judge's brow furrowed. "Sir, you cannot just..." Before the sentence could finish, Walter had already planted himself directly in front of his son. For one breathless second, nothing moved. Then it happened. The slap rang out through the courtroom like a gunshot. Shock rippled across every row of seats. Marcus staggered backward, stunned. My mouth fell open. The attorneys sat frozen. Even the judge looked caught off guard. Walter jabbed a finger toward his son. "You absolute fool!" Marcus pressed a hand to his cheek. "Dad, what is wrong with you?" The judge banged his gavel down hard. "Order! I want order in this courtroom!" But Walter had already turned away from his son, facing the bench instead, his expression heavy and resolute. Then came the words that changed everything. "My son has done plenty wrong, but he isn't the one hiding the biggest secret in this room." A wave of stunned silence swept over everyone, myself included, because I had no idea what he could possibly mean. For a long stretch, no one in the room moved. Marcus stared at his father in total disbelief. "Dad, what are you even talking about?" Walter looked drained, like a man who had been holding something back for far too long. The judge cleared his throat. "Mr. Reeves, if you intend to make a serious accusation, this court needs evidence, not theatrics." Walter nodded. "I have evidence, Your Honor." He reached beneath his arm and pulled out a leather folder. I brought proof. My pulse pounded in my ears. I glanced toward Marcus and saw, for the first time that entire day, real fear on his face. Walter passed several documents to the bailiff, who carried them up to the bench. The room went still again as the judge studied each page, his expression shifting almost instantly. "What exactly am I looking at?" he asked. Walter exhaled slowly. 3 months ago, I learned that my wife had been secretly altering financial records tied to our family's business. A wave of murmurs spread through the gallery. Marcus dropped his gaze to the floor. I sat there completely lost. Financial records, a family business. What did any of it have to do with my marriage falling apart? Walter continued. My son uncovered the irregular transactions nearly a year ago. He went to her privately, trying to fix things quietly before it tore the family apart. I turned to Marcus. "Why didn't you tell me any of this?" His jaw clenched tight. Walter answered before his son could. "Because he was trying to shield everyone." The judge kept reading, and several pages later he looked up again. "These records show significant unauthorized transfers." Walter nodded grimly. "More than $200,000. Gasps spread across the courtroom. My stomach dropped. Marcus finally stood, his voice strained. Once I learned what was going on, I thought I could handle it without anyone else getting hurt. Walter set a hand on his son's shoulder. "But it spiraled." Marcus nodded. "Far beyond what I expected. For months I was buried in meetings with lawyers, accountants, investigators. Every time I thought it was contained, something new surfaced." I looked at him. "Why keep me in the dark?" Pain crossed his face. "Because I was ashamed." That answer caught me off guard. Marcus met my eyes directly for the first time in what felt like forever. "I thought keeping you away from it would protect you." "By ending our marriage?" I asked. Regret filled his expression. "No," he said softly. "I never actually wanted a divorce." The room fell completely silent. "What?" I whispered. He swallowed hard. "My mother convinced me that if this ever became public, our family would be pulled through months of court battles and headlines." He paused. "She told me you and our daughter would suffer because of it." I could barely process what I was hearing. "She said separating from you would protect you both from everything that was coming." Walter shook his head, anger flashing in his eyes. "And that lie nearly cost him everything that mattered." The judge looked over another page. "This statement confirms outside influence and false information given to the petitioner." Walter nodded. "Once I found out the truth, I realized my son had been manipulated from the very start." Marcus looked wrecked. "I should have trusted you with this." Tears welled in my eyes. "You should have." For months I had convinced myself he no longer loved me. For months I blamed myself for everything. Now, piece by piece, the truth was finally coming together. Not every question had an answer yet. Not every wound was healed. But for the first time, I could see past the silence to what had really been happening. The judge leaned back in his seat. "In light of this new evidence, I'm postponing today's proceedings." Relief crashed over me so fast I nearly broke down crying right there. Marcus shut his eyes. Walter let out a breath he seemed to have been holding for a year. The divorce was not finalized, not that day. Out in the hallway afterward, the three of us stood together in uneasy quiet. Finally, Marcus spoke. "I'm sorry, Hannah." His voice cracked. "I handled every part of this the wrong way. I looked at the man I had loved for 7 years. The same man who had wounded me deeply, who I now understood, had been carrying weight I never knew existed. I'm still furious, I told him honestly. You have every reason to be, he answered. But from now on, I want only honesty. He nodded without hesitation. No more secrets ever. Weeks later, our daughter entered the world healthy and strong. The months that followed weren't simple. Rebuilding trust takes time, and pain doesn't vanish overnight. But slowly, piece by piece, Marcus and I found our way back to talking, to listening, to being honest with one another again. Looking back now, I think often about that courtroom because it wasn't the slap that saved our marriage. It was the truth that came out because of it. The slap only forced that truth into the light, and once the lies were gone, we finally had the chance to choose each other all over again.